Hey, sports fans, welcome to another edition of This Week in Sports, brought to you by www.sports-kings.com, the mecca in all your sports needs. I'm telling you, people, there's the logo. You need to go check out our site, read some of the articles, leave us some comments, and since you're on our YouTube page, subscribe, tell your friends, comment on these videos. If you like it, share it with your friends because they need to see it too. With me today, I have Michael.
What's up, guys?
I was waiting to see if he was going to do the introduction. He didn't seem to want to do it on our show from last night.
Yeah, like I said, there's no need to do it, man. I'm on here all the time. People probably sick of hearing my voice and seeing my beautiful face. It's okay. I get it.
One take Hove, one take Michael. Also with me is Joe. Joe, how you doing?
I love your voice, Michael, for the record.
Thank you.
But,
Thank you. There's one.
Hey, man, it's a wonderful day in SK Nation. Let's get to it.
And not only in SK Nation, it's a wonderful day by the looks of it out my window. The sun is shining here in western New York, and I could not be more ecstatic. I'm Andy Flint. Before I forget that, I'll be hosting today. We have a great show, guys. We're going to be talking about all angles of sports. We're talking Pine Tar. We're talking Johnny Football. We're talking Mike D'Antoni, Herschel Walker, Carmelo Anthony. I mean, we're just going to explode with excitement. So let's jump right into the first topic. That's Michael Pineda. And there's the Pine Tar reference. Bro, you got a little something on your neck. You know, for me, it looked kind of like spray tan at first. But the best part was the ump who was sampling the. We'll get into that. Let's go. Pineda's facing a 10-game suspension, which looks like he'll miss 2 games pitching into his rotation. So a lot of people were saying that this isn't quite a harsh enough penalty. But on the flip side of that, a lot of pitchers are saying, well, we use Pine Tar too. Everybody uses Pine Tar, that sort of thing, things of that nature. How big of a deal is this with the Pine Tar, first of all? And then how big of a deal is his suspension? Too little, too much? Who cares? Michael, you first.
Well, I mean, before I begin, let's just think back for a second when Michael Pineda was traded from Seattle to New York for this guy named Jesus Montero, who at the time was the Yankees' best prospect and all this. Everybody thought, okay, this is a trade that makes sense. This is a futures deal. The Yankees finally get this fireball right-hander that, you know, this is going to be the future of their pitching, you know, giant, you know, upper echelon of pitching that they're going to have, you know, down the road. This hasn't worked out for anybody. Jesus Montero came into camp after winter ball 40 pounds overweight, and Seattle Brass has already said, yeah, we have no confidence in this kid. And now you've got this, you know, fireballing rookie Michael Pineda who is putting Pine Tar behind his ear because, oh, it's cold in Boston. Dude, you play in New York. What do you expect? It's going to be cold the first couple of weeks of opening season, of the opening, you know, part of the season. If every pitcher does it, great. They do a better job of hiding it than Pineda does. I mean, you know, a little bit. You know, I get, you know, everybody's a little bit wet behind the ears, but a little bit tarry behind the ears. I don't know. That's just doesn't seem like that's gonna fit right about now. But you know, I wasn't alive in the '80s. I don't remember if George Brett got suspended for the Pine Tar issue or for how long. You know, if this is a start, great. You know, the kid got suspended. He said he's gonna take his suspension. He misses 2 games. Woo hoo hoo. You know, I don't think a lot of people cared about Pine Tar until this whole thing. So, I mean, maybe this is, you know, a step to where people are going to be like, oh, okay, well, now we care. The point is, the guy took it like a man. He takes his suspension like a man. I applaud that, if anything.
And actually, I was just trying to educate myself a little bit because I'm not a huge baseball guy, but his next start was actually slated for Monday, which is the off day for the Yankees this week. So actually, they only need to fill in for 1 game. So essentially, his 10-game suspension is a 1-game suspension as far as he's concerned. Joe, your thoughts?
You know, the first thing I want to say is echo Michael's sentiments about how, you know, props to Pineda for owning up to it. I'm just going to read off a quote from ESPN real quick. The truth is that I feel stupid, Pineda told the ESPN Deportes. It was a last-minute decision when I went out in the 2nd inning, and since I was unable to see myself, I didn't know how much I'd put on until I saw the video. Like, you know, dude knows he got caught red-handed. Yeah. Best to turn himself in, call it a day. But I think what really shocked me the most is how, you know, people are saying, oh, you know, everybody does Pine Tar in baseball. You know, what's the big deal? And you know, this guy got caught. You know, do you guys think this is something that will start to get cracked down on moving forward, or is this just kind of the 10-game suspension, like you say, it's only 1 or 2 starts? Is this just kind of a ripple in the water and nothing's going to come from it?
Well, I think for at least the moment, it's going to kind of be the flavor of the day. I mean, they're going to be looking for this a little more in the coming weeks, I would assume. I mean, it's with anything. If if you get caught, if somebody gets caught doing something, and this was like twice too, so they're going to
and it was against the same team too. It was like his last game against the Red Sox was the first time they find it.
Goes back out there. They're not stupid. We know teams from Massachusetts tend to videotape things a little more than other teams. So like they were probably looking for that. I'm sure they tipped off the umps onto this thing, and it's to me it's crazy. Listen, Snooki, when you're getting your spray tan, make sure you apply all over, cover the whole base. Don't just get the spot on your neck. I don't understand why Pineda. That's the thing to me is like I don't think he's dumb for doing it because as we've talked about, a lot of people do it. And a lot of people get away with it. I think he's dumb for where it was on his. I don't understand. I just feel like, I'm sure as a young man, as a star baseball player his whole life, the guy's had to cover up his fair share of things on his neck, and I'm talking hickeys. Why do you think the pine tar there is a good place? Why not your mitt? Like, isn't there somewhere you can put it in your mitt or on your wrist? Or like, I just don't understand how it's going to be on his neck. I mean, we have HD television, folks. I don't get it. Michael, do you have a closing sentiment on this?
Well, I think, we have to put Michael Pineda in the Bonehead Hall of Fame with, like you mentioned, the New England Patriots and Spygate, Marty McSorley's curved stick in the '93 Stanley Cup Finals. This is just a stupid move by Pineda. Granted, it's a rookie mistake, but at the same time, seriously, you put too much, man, way too much. I mean, God. Put on your armpit or something, like the dude in Major League. Put Vagisil under his armpit for an extra 2 inches drop on his curveball. If you're going to do it, hide it better, man.
It's got to be hidden. It's got to be hidden. So let's jump into our next thing, and this is a guy who's hiding his eyes better than Michael Pineda hid pine tar, and that's our boy Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel. An interesting video, actually, our boy Austin Pete from Sports Kings Down in Distance. That's our football portion of SK Nation. Did a nice write-up about Johnny Manziel. It includes a video from Vine, I do believe, where Manziel is blindfolded, channeling his best Luke Skywalker while being trained by Obi-Wan Kenobi against the practice droid with his lightsaber swinging it around. But this is Manziel simply knowing where his receiver is, even though he can't see him, by a simple clap of the hands. And it wasn't some downfield pass. It was just kind of a little leak out where he hits the receiver, but it was spot on money. You couldn't throw a better football in that place. It's getting some attention. Are we overthinking this? I'm not going to ask you guys if Johnny Manziel is using the force, because clearly he is. We'll go to you first, Joe. What do you have to say about this?
Man, this is the kind of crap that goes on when you decide to push the draft back 2 weeks. People got all their mock drafts going. People, got too much time on their hands before the draft comes up in 2 weekends from now. Man, Johnny Manziel's pretty good. I think he's got, a fair amount of game. He's good, moving around the pocket. Props to him. If he can make a blindfolded pass 5 yards, I don't even think I could throw to someone straight in front of me if I was blindfolded. So that was pretty impressive to watch. But, this is all just filler. And, NFL draft's coming up in 2 weeks. That's my favorite time of the NFL season as a Bills fan. I'm looking forward to seeing how things finally shake out, and it'll certainly be interesting to see where Johnny Manziel ends up.
Michael, your thoughts on Johnny Juan Manziel, the Force-using Jedi?
And they tried to tell me the Force wasn't real. What the hell, people? Come on. May the 4th is coming up for a reason. It's only fitting that Manziel uses the Force a week before the 4th. I wanted to do it on next week's show, but that would have been old news by then. But, aside from the fact that this guy is, pushing the envelope when it comes to his training techniques, I think he's trying to prove to people, yes, I'm more than just a guy who runs around like a chicken with my freaking head cut off 50 yards, for an end zone. I can complete a pass. Look, I can do it blindfolded. I bet you can't do that. I kind of, I don't want to say this because I'm kind of a harsh critic when it comes to Johnny Football, I never really expected Johnny Football to, I don't want to say amount to anything, but I didn't think he would have as good a career in the future as a lot of people are projecting. You know, I mean, now with all this stuff, I mean, he's kind of like an athletic right-handed Fran Tarkenton, but obviously Fran Tarkenton is, you know, was a Hall of Famer. I don't think Manziel's going to be a Hall of Famer. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. Great, great, maybe Hall of Fame, no. But then again, stuff like this could, you know, prove me wrong. And I like the fact that he's trying to prove people wrong. He's trying to show people, hey, look, I can do things like this. More power to you, man. If you can throw a football 5 yards and blindfolded, good for you.
You know, the thing I really like about Manziel is he's kind of making a spectacle out of some of these things. And it's funny because people have trashed him a lot coming into the NFL. A lot of people don't think he'll amount to much. But doing his pro day with pads on, doing this blindfolded thing, I mean, he's really doing the best job that he can to kind of market himself and push himself past some of the normal things. Like, he's really thinking outside the box, and I can totally respect that.
Wonderlic test, too.
Yeah, I mean, these are the things, intangibles, because people have talked about his height being a disadvantage, his arm, the way that he has to create plays with his legs and moving around and things of that nature. And we do know that it's harder on the NFL level to do things like that. We've watched Vince Young. I mean, remember what was the Rose Bowl against USC where he was just like, he just took that game over. He ran the ball whenever he wanted, ran linebackers over, did things of that nature. And then in the NFL, he couldn't do that because everybody was a step faster, everybody was a bit stronger, et cetera, et cetera. And now we see Johnny Manziel, and his biggest weapon is being able to extend plays and move around. But he's 6 foot tall, and people tend to not like that and stray away from it. So now all we hear is about how Johnny Football probably won't develop correctly in the NFL. So I like the fact that he's going out and doing the Wonderlic test, the Jedi throws, you know, pro day with pads on. I don't know if this means he'll be great. I don't know what it means, but I take my hat off to the guy. I think he's doing a great job at pushing himself, marketing himself the right way, and getting extra looks. I mean, we're talking about him right now.
And
Joe, did you have a
You want to talk about, you know, Jedi Mind Force? When he gets to the NFL, he's gonna be running into a Sith army of NFL defensive ends and outside linebackers and guys who actually know how to set the edge. Anybody that thinks he's just gonna come in and rush around, you know, for 1,000 yards, even like RG3 did 2 years ago. I mean, defenses are on top of that right now. I think, you know, a lot of people have said Fran Tarkenton about Johnny Manziel. A lot have said Doug Flutie too. You know, this guy's not going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm pretty convinced on that right now.
You have any last words, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, everybody's concerned about this kid's height. If I'm not mistaken, we just had a short guy win the Lombardi Trophy, didn't we?
But isn't he the exception? Isn't he the exception to the rule, though, kind of?
Well, I mean, when you look at a guy like Drew Brees. Drew Brees is a short guy. He's got a Lombardi Trophy.
But they're two different.
Drew Brees is a hell of a lot better passer than either of those.
Two different quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's true too. But and you know, we can always say that Russell Wilson didn't exactly win the Lombardi Trophy. That Seahawks defense did. But I mean, the whole thing is, short people have won a Super Bowl quarterback. I'm not saying that, you know, they were the reason, but it has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Drew Brees, though, real quick, just I'll wrap this up with this. Drew Brees is a different quarterback than both these two. I see the Manziel and Russell Wilson comparisons because those two are sort of similar. Excuse me. But I think when you're talking Russell Wilson, he's kind of the exception to that 6 foot playmaker type quarterback rule, I feel like. So not to say Manziel couldn't be as well, but I feel like it's kind of a pipe dream. But we'll see. So let's jump into the next one. We're staying with football. We're talking the 52-year-old Herschel Walker. Now, for you kids out there who have probably, joined your mom on the couch late at night and seen Herschel Walker on the cooking channel, I know he's done a couple. I think he did the he did the Donald Trump show there. What's that show? The Apprentice. He did that one year, and then he was on. I was just reading this. He was on Guy versus Rachel. Guy Fieri, Rachel Ray, cooking. The guy's actually an excellent cook from what I'm reading. And he's in great shape. He does umpteen push-ups, sit-ups since he was in, high school. Still to this day, he's ripped. He's an animal. but could he play in the NFL right now? Because that's what we're talking about. Herschel Walker says at 52 years old, he could get in there and play in the NFL. Joe Ray, what are your thoughts?
I mean, you can keep yourself in such good shape, throughout your whole life. But you want to come into the NFL, Herschel Walker, and play running back at 52? Guys can't even keep themselves in the NFL at 32 at running back. Look at Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson, great example of a guy. I mean, definitely totally built differently than Herschel Walker. But he's a guy that's, 28, I want to say. Already starting to flame out. Guys are saying he's done. Signs a contract for 2 years with the New York Jets. Maurice Jones-Drew, Ray Rice, all these guys. They just, the running back position is so different in the NFL today that guys, with that bigger build, like Adrian Peterson, are just such outliers. Playing in prime. I mean, obviously, this is just a headline grab, Maybe, somebody will sign into a practice squad, get him out there, hey, kicking around with the guys for a little while. Just, no, don't even think about it. Don't even take any of this seriously.
It is nuts. Michael, your thoughts on Herschel?
When I first heard about this, I automatically wanted to know who that man's dealer was, because that dude was smoking some serious stuff.
That Kush.
There was nothing that I can say that would make me want to. There's nothing that man could say that would make me agree with, yes, he can play in the NFL right now. Dude, like Joe was saying, you're 52 years old. Let's kind of go back in the Wayback Machine to a couple other people that tried to make comebacks. This guy named Peter Forsberg was a god when it came to Colorado, with the Colorado Avalanche in the early 90s, mid 2000s. Tries to come back from concussion injuries. Can't do it. I'm not counting the time that he was in Philadelphia or Nashville, Joe. That doesn't count. Let's look at a guy like Johnny Damon, who plays baseball. Baseball's not as physical as, I'm being nice here. It's nowhere near as physical as football. Johnny Damon couldn't come back from a year off or however long he was out. I think a guy like went in the minors, and then he didn't even end up making a team out of camp. And you want to play football, Herschel Walker? You take one hit from a guy like Charles Johnson or Greg Hardy or even Andy's boy, Ndamukong Suh. Or let's say you get into the league and you meet up with this Jadeveon Clowney guy and he Vincent Smiths your ass. Then what? You're broke in half, dude. What you gonna do, man? What you gonna do when Ndamukong Suh runs wild on you?
No,
Nothing.
the Hulkster. So before I go in on Herschel Walker, I just want to go off what Michael said a little bit there. It almost seems like you've mentioned two guys, and Ndamukong Suh may soon no longer be my boy, and it seems like maybe Jadeveon Clowney could be my new boy in the near future, but that's for a different time. As far as Herschel Walker goes, I share the same thought process as Michael with the, what are you smoking, pal? Like
blue sky. That's what he's got.
He's got that blue sky, that Heisenberg meth. And the thing is, Herschel Walker's in great shape. I wouldn't fight the guy because he would kick my ass. And I almost feel like the opposite of what Michael said a little bit. I think he probably could take the tackles. It's making the moves and the cuts and the little things like that. He's going to get hurt. It's not your muscles that are going to save you at 52 years old. You need your ligaments and your joints and things of that nature. Those are the things that go as you get older. Trust me, I'm 30 and my stuff's going. I mean, I wake up on a cold day and my ankle hurts, okay, for no reason. And these are the things. I'm sure Herschel Walker has some form of arthritis at his age, knowing that he was a professional athlete, a guy who took a pounding. I just don't see it for him. There was people spectating, commenting on this, saying that that they thought maybe it would be good to bring him into training camp, put some fans in the seats, that sort of thing. But he's never going to see the field. He couldn't do it. And my final thought on Herschel Walker is, why did these ex-greats, because Herschel Walker was a great running back, why do they do this? The sport they played, the sport they must respect, the sport they love, the sport that made them who they are in the world of sports, Like, why do they disrespect it by saying things like this? Because to me, this is disrespectful. Dominique Wilkins said the same thing, saying he could score 40 points against the 5th best defense in the NBA at the time, the Charlotte Bobcats, just because they gave up 60 to LeBron and 60 to Carmelo. Dominique, you're not LeBron. I would go as far as saying, Dominique, you were never LeBron, as great of a player as he was.
Boom.
But at 40 years or 50 years old, how are you going to come in and score 40 points? Like, I don't understand it. Same thing goes to Herschel Walker. You know, let the past be the past. You were good. You were great. You lived your time. Don't disrespect it now. Like, to me, it's disrespectful. I've said it 19 times. It's the only word I could really think of.
Yeah, you know who we don't hear about doing this? Barry Sanders. He was great.
Yeah.
Retiring early. The other guy I thought of, too, as long as we're talking about attempted comebacks,
absolutely,
guys that want to come back, Tiki Barber. Retired at, 31? Less than a decade ago? Tried coming back, a couple of years later. Nobody's going to take him.
You lose it.
When he was like 34, you want to come back at 52?
You can't lose
Sean
2
Alexander.
years. That's the thing, is you can't lose time, especially in the NFL. Like, you cannot lose a year even, or 2 years. Like, it's so hard. And yeah, Tiki Barber is a great example. Shout out to Tiki Barber. I just met him and shook his hand a couple weeks ago here in my hometown. But there's it's one of those things you can't miss time, because the game progresses and it moves on without you. I mean, we saw Plexico Burress was kind of at the height of his career when he went to prison, and he came back and I think scored 7 touchdowns that year he was allowed to come back. But he was never the same.
Same with Michael Vick. Oh yeah.
Same with Michael Vick.
I was just about to say that. Get out of my head, Joe.
Absolutely. You can't lose time in the National Football
League. And ironically, all 3 of the people, Michael Vick, Plexico Burress, and Joe mentioned Chris Johnson, they're all New York Jets. If Herschel wants to get back into the NFL,
hey,
the New York Jets.
The New York Jets.
Call them up.
Give him a holler. So let's jump. We're going to kind of switch sports here on you. We're going to go to basketball. There's been some reports that Mike D'Antoni, the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, the no-defense master, Michael, easy there, Michael. You guys share the same first name. Calm down. But they were talking a little bit about D'Antoni, if he was fired by the Lakers, if he was no longer with the Lakers past this season, which it looks like, Michael, he'll still be there, unfortunately for Lakers fans. They were talking about him going to his alma mater, Marshall. It seems like, though, that's kind of died down at this point, and Mike himself is kind of saying, no, this isn't going to happen. We'll go to you first, Michael, because you're a Lakers fan, and I know that you didn't want to lose D'Antoni in the first place. So let's get your thoughts here.
Well, if anybody
he's so mad. He looks so upset right now.
If anybody is to feel bad, it should be the fans of the Marshall Thundering Herd. I mean,
because their name is the Thundering Herd.
Well, that's not terrible. I've heard worse. No, I mean, how low can you how low is your team right now, to the point where you have to go out and not only try to go after Mike D'Antoni, you fail. So what do? You go get the next best thing, his idiot older brother, Dan. Wow. I can attribute and I don't know what it is about this whole upper northern part of the southern states region about going after brothers and then seemingly having to go after their slower, nobody's ever heard of other sibling. I'm talking to you, Washington Redskins, when you try to go after John Gruden, you end up with Jay. I mean, how I feel bad for you Thundering Herd fans. How low is at some point do you think I'm going to what's going to possess a college recruit to go, hey, I want to go play for D'Antoni. Yeah, nobody wants to go to Los Angeles now because of Mike D'Antoni. And you're going to bring people to Marshall, West Virginia with D'Antoni? Stop, please.
The thing is they're already in dire straits if they're going to play basketball at Marshall anyways. But, Joe, let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, if this Marshall team is that desperate for a coach, they're looking for some sort of marketing ploy to bring in a D'Antoni brother like that. That's I don't think anybody's really heard the Marshall basketball program making waves in the last few years. Ever really. As for Mike D'Antoni, I think he's getting the can because the power has shifted in Staples Center certainly, and there's still one team in Los Angeles that everybody wants to go to, and it sure as heck ain't the Lakers. That's for sure.
Ugh, that's like a stab to the chest. The thing I share the opposite feelings as you guys. I feel like it's a terrible look for Mike D'Antoni. How would you go from being the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers to being the coach of the what was their name?
Marshall Thundering Herd.
The Marshall Thundering Herd. Like how does that happen? I can understand him going to a basketball program in the NCAA that is good, that goes to the tournament, that makes a little noise because he's Mike D'Antoni. As much as he might stink as the Lakers coach right now, part of that's due to the fact that they don't. Well, absolutely.
They don't have any talent with no
he was a bad fit for the Knicks, and the Lakers have no talent. I mean, he did do some good things in Phoenix for a few years. Obviously, not my ideal coach, but he's still too good to go coach at Marshall. Let's kind of
forget about this.
Let's leech off of this subject a little bit, and we'll go to D'Antoni's ex-boy, Carmelo Anthony, and more importantly, the Big O, Oscar Roberts. How am I going to butcher Oscar's name? Oscar Robertson, the Big O, the triple-double threat whenever he's on the court in his day, one of the most pivotal players in NBA history. He's, says if he were Carmelo Anthony, he'd have been on the first bus out of there, the first plane, the first train, walking, hitchhiking, doing whatever he could to get out of the Big Apple, like yesterday. And his reasoning is simple. And I'll just say up front that I happen to agree with everything he said. No matter what Carmelo Anthony does, if it's not winning an NBA championship in New York City as a member of the Knickerbockers, it's not going to be enough. He's going to get slandered. He's going to get killed in the media. And the problem is they have injured players eating up too much money. Shout out to you, Amari Stoudemire. They have underachievers. They have a terrible roster. And the worst part is they're talking about Carmelo Anthony possibly taking a pay cut. He can make about $24 million in the first year of his contract if he were to re-sign. So a pay cut would be anywhere from, anything would be a pay cut. But what we're looking at is $2 to $4 million probably, which would translate somewhere to 15, 20 million over the life of their contract is really what the talk is about. But that doesn't make them any better right away. He would still have to ride out an entire season, because we're talking like 2015 before that money is even going to matter. And Amari Stoudemire's contract his terrible, long, owed too much money contract is over with. And the thing about Carmelo Anthony is he's going to be next month in May, he's going to turn 30 years old. So does Carmelo Anthony want to wait until he's 31 to maybe have some improvements to that Knicks roster to actually be able to compete? No way. And if he stays, he's stealing money, and I'm done with the dude. Carmelo, I'm done with you if you stay with the Knicks. Michael, your thoughts? I know he doesn't care that I'm done with him, but I am.
I tend to agree with you on this one, Andy, and I agree with the Big O. For starters, Oscar Robertson's kind of one of those guys, when you talk about the greats, when you talk about like a Kareem or a Jordan, or even a Wilt Chamberlain, you kind of don't talk about an Oscar Robertson. You talk about Dr. J before you talk about Oscar Robertson. This guy was a beast. This guy was a beast on the court. And when you say, Carmelo, if I were you, I would, leave right now. Yeah, dude, leave. Get the hell out of there. Apparently everybody's new destination point is the Houston Rockets, which, the Big O seems to kind of want to sway Carmelo to going. But, we were talking about this last night, Andy, with the state of, I guess you want to call it influx that Kevin McHale is bringing with, James Harden and Dwight Howard in the playoffs. Does Carmelo really want to go to that situation where he could, be the third, possibly the third option?
No, he would never be the third option.
Yeah. Well, okay, how about the number 2 option?
It wouldn't even matter. That I'll touch on that when it's my turn, but you keep going.
But okay, we'll get there. But everybody wants to go to Houston. Everybody wants to go to Houston. I hear the Clippers are also a team that could be in the mix there. Chicago, obviously, he would get the chance to play with Derrick Rose. But I think the whole point is, if Carmelo knows what's good for Carmelo, and I think he does because it's his own self, if he stops listening to other people telling him, stay in New York, do whatever, or maybe even he needs to listen to people to tell him to, get the hell out of New York. Carmelo's going to do what Carmelo wants to do, and that's the bottom line.
All right, let's hear your thoughts, Joe, on Melo and the Big O.
I think the best thing right now for Melo is certainly to leave New York, and it's really a shame because I was really hoping things were going to work out there for him, to be honest. But Phil Jackson's got a lot to fix there, and unfortunately, it probably won't involve Melo. And, the problems are probably starting already because I was reading and seeing reports that him and James Dolan are already butting heads over, personnel and player issues, and just so he needs to do his best to distance himself. The three places Mike mentioned that he wants to go, or are rumored right now, are Houston, Clippers, Chicago. Houston, they've already got enough problems right now, as we've seen against the Trailblazers, with James Harden, wants to go speed, push the offense. Dwight Howard saying, hey, no, let's pound the rock, play a little slower tempo. You try to add Melo in there, and, he's just going to end up taking 25 shots a game. That'd just be a whole, cluster of just nothing. Clippers, they've got Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan's actually having a very good year as far as, improving himself. So I think they've got a good team. They just need to round out their supporting cast better. Chicago, who the heck knows if Derrick Rose ever comes back. But if they just decide that they need another star, then, I think that could work out. A team that I would think Melo would be a pretty good fit on would be a team that has a lot of young guys that are still developing, but they need kind of that alpha male that's like the scorer at the end of the game. Cleveland Cavaliers.
No, he ain't
Kyrie
going there.
Irving, need a small forward. It's a good fit, good dream about it. I mean, sure as hell he's never going to go there.
Yeah,
but
I can't see it.
They might bring LeBron back to Cleveland.
LeBron could go back to Cleveland, and then Carmelo could take a spot
goes
in Miami. There we go.
That could possibly happen.
Yeah, I agree with Michael, Joe, on like 95%.
He's got to get out of there.
He's got to go for sure. Because of the fact that team can't do anything right away, as I alluded to before. 2, because this Phil Jackson Dolan thing is probably going to get out of hand rather quickly, and I thought this from the start. The teams, actually, I'll talk about the 3 teams Michael had mentioned that Joe piggybacked off of a little bit there. I hate the fit in Houston for every reason. I know the allure is there because Dwight Howard and James Harden are there, but it's such a bad fit. Like, I can't even begin to explain to you. I don't have enough time. I would need 40 minutes to explain to you why that's such a bad fit, but I'll go the short route here. Carmelo Anthony thrives in a half-court set, not on the break. Houston doesn't run half-court sets as much as they run the break. Like, that's their bread and butter. They like to run the break. They're good at it. Carmelo would screw that up. It wouldn't complement his game. 2 is James Harden already has the same kind of an offense as Carmelo Anthony in terms of lots of shots.
Yeah.
Bad shots, good shots, every shot he wants, and he's taking the shots. So that's messed up, too. You can't have those guys on the same team. And then Dwight Howard, you're going to really take more shots away from Dwight Howard. Like, he's going to want out of there. So I feel like the only way that Carmelo Anthony works in Houston is if James Harden's gone, and I don't see that happening. So I think that's kind of a pipe dream. Houston needs a point guard. Patrick Beverley needs to be in a complimentary role off the bench, helping out. They need to get rid of Jeremy Lin. They need to put Patrick Beverley in that sort of a role, and they need a starting point guard who can give you some points, who can control. Because that's the thing with Beverley and Lin. Neither of them really control the tempo of the game on offense. They needed a guy like that. But we talked about guys like a Rondo or like even a Jameer Nelson from Orlando, guys who could have been available that would have fit. The Rondo, I still think, is the fit that they need. The other 2 teams, I like them in L.A. with the Clippers. They would have to tweak a little bit, but I think that's one thing they can have as another scorer because Chris Paul is not selfish with the ball. He'll pass the ball, get it to the scorer. They could use a guy on the wing that could really do some damage. Blake and DeAndre are going to get their shots regardless. And Chicago, for me, is the best fit because even right now, without Derrick Rose, that team needs a Carmelo Anthony. That team could be winning. That team would be so deadly right now in the East if they had Carmelo Anthony on that roster because that's what they lack is scoring. They're so good at defense that I don't think Carmelo would really screw that up anyways. And that's my thing. Chicago Bulls, Carmelo, get to Chicago. It's a big market too. That's the other thing about like a Cleveland. Nobody wants to play in Cleveland. I think Chicago has that market size. They have Joakim Noah. They have Derrick Rose if he comes back. Even if Derrick Rose isn't able to come back, Carmelo's still going to thrive there. That team's still going to be good. They're in place. Tom Thibodeau is a great coach. My sleeper has always been the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't know how it would work dollar-wise, but I would love to see him in there with Gasol and Randolph, because that's another team who kind of hits a wall when it comes to scoring. They need a wing scorer. Although, don't tell them that because they might screw up and start losing to OKC. Unless you guys have any, do you guys have any final thoughts here? We're about at time.
Clippers, big win over Golden State last night. Nearly blew it there, but 98-96.
Absolutely.
Keep on going, Lob City.
And a big win for Memphis last night over OKC.
Oh, yeah.
Pushed that 2-1. Michael, closing thoughts. Spotlight's on you, pal.
Nah.
No Javaris Crittenton slander.
Nah.
Okay. Well,
Go
I'd like to
Panthers.
say thank you to everybody who tuned in. Keep watching the shows. Keep commenting. Subscribe. Tell your friends. I can't stress that enough. We want to keep making these great shows for you guys every week. Want you guys to tune in. On behalf of myself, Michael, Joe, everybody at SK Nation, thank you for tuning in. Have a great week.
Number 1.